Michigan. I grew up in Portland. I'm a Bulldog, but I was born in Windjammer land. Members of the committee, my name is Ben Waxman, along with my wife, Whitney Waxman. We are the co-founders and owners of American Roots, one of the only 100% American-made and union-made clothing companies in the entire country. We're proudly located in Westbrook, Maine. We are the only clothing company in the United States that we know of that makes every single garment with 100% US sourced material, including the polo shirt that I'm wearing, and has it designed and constructed proudly in our 100% unionized factory represented by USW Local 366 and screen printed by IUPAT DC 35. We pay good wages. We provide good health care. People get 2 to 3 weeks vacation in our factory. It doesn't happen by accident. All of our workers work in a safe environment, and that means now more than ever is so important. We've experienced significant growth in just the past 5 years of existence, growing from nearly 4 employees and 900 square feet in 2015 to nearly 30 employees on March 13th of 2020, at which point we were in a 15,000 square foot factory and we were facing a global pandemic like all of us. We didn't know if we were going to have a company by the end of March. We made a decision for 2 reasons to pivot. One, because our country needed us, along with my other fellow manufacturers like Flowfold and Hyperlite and others in Maine and LL Bean, to step up and pivot. We grew to a 30,000 square foot factory and grew from 30 employees to 120 employees in 90 days. It was the fastest year of my life. 95% of our business is working with private companies, unions, educational institutions, and other entities who want high quality American-made and union-made products to have their name customized to a garment that they can be proud to wear. 95% of our business to date, prior to the pandemic, was all out of state. That remains the same. Sit before you today in support of LD 1411. We are known as a state filled with incredibly hardworking people, innovative people, and it is time that those people are able to compete on a level playing field. The playing field is not level, committee members, especially when it comes to the goods and services of the state. Passing LD 1411 is only a first step in leveling that playing field for the hardworking women and men of Maine, who are often competing against a global economy that is unfairly rigged against them. It is unfair and above all bad economics to not allow Maine businesses the opportunity to compete on a level playing field with multinational or states that don't have similar practices and good labor practices. I'll give you an example. In North Carolina, I'm sorry, not North Carolina, a separate state, we bid a state contract. They do not have a Buy American clause in that state. We bid our masks at $4.85 a piece. I believe it was $4.85. It went to an outside overseas contractor for 98 cents a mask. I can assure you that those masks were not made in safe work environments, were not made paying people good wages, and did nothing to raise up the people in this state's, the other state that we were bidding's, lives. We need to value the workers who make this state run on a daily basis. And we need to give them the opportunity to provide their products and skills to all Mainers. For too long, we've seen the lowest bid be the way to go because of cost. There's one thing that this pandemic has taught us all is that it's time to make things in America again. It's time to make things in Maine. One must realize that while we may be saving pennies on the dollar by awarding out-of-state or overseas companies with significant contracts, there is a human cost and there's an economic cost to the very Mainers who are actually paying for it, me included. How can we possibly recruit smart, innovative, hardworking Mainers to invest and start businesses right here in Maine if we do not allow for a level playing field against foreign competition or out-of-state competition where wages are simply lower and benefits are rare? This shouldn't be a debate, this should be law. I proudly support this bill. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Waxman. Are there any questions for Mr. Waxman? Thank you, Mr. Waxman, and we appreciate your time as well and all your successes. Best wishes. Our next speaker is the Honorable Adam Good.
Good afternoon, Senator Baldacci and Representative Matlack and members of very hard act to follow from Mr. Waxman and all the legislators that spoke. I serve as the legislative and political director of the Maine AFL-CIO. We represent 40,000 working people in the state of Maine, work to improve their lives and working conditions of our members and all working people. It seems somewhat relevant to share where we were born today. I was born in Calais and now live in Topsom. And so I just wanted to share that with the committee as well, because that was a good way to get people's attention on Mr. Waxman's part. We support all the testimony that everybody has already said on this bill. We've testified on it multiple times in the past. And as the Senate president said, this has gone through a lot of changes. And I think that those are good changes that help make the bill stronger and that this is the right moment to pass this. So the Maine AFL-CIO fully supports LD 1411. We share a goal of passing legislation that will create jobs in the United States. When we eventually pass Buy American legislation, it will help support and create manufacturing jobs. Manufacturing is an important part of our economy, and these are jobs that are core to small towns and the middle class in Maine. There's a long-term trend of transitioning manufacturing jobs overseas. It's a lose-lose trend for Maine workers and our communities. Companies that manufacture overseas present a challenge to workers, their families, and their neighborhoods. It's not right that companies manufacture overseas in order to avoid being held to the same standards as local companies. These standards include workplace safety, child labor, and environmental protection. Manufacturing overseas often results in working people being exploited through unsafe and deplorable conditions at their job. Voting to pass this bill would help minimize that practice. Procuring iron, steel, and other goods through overseas manufacturing undermines American companies that play by the rules. And we certainly do not want to reward companies that offshore and avoid playing by the rules. The legislation includes clear definitions of manufactured goods and of manufacturing in the United States. We think the definitions are solid and should be passed. And the bill stands out to us because it has clear definitions for state contractors and providing for preferences for in-state contractors. So I don't have a lot else to add. Happy to answer any questions if your committee has any.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the Honorable Adam Good? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I neglected to mention Representative Ann Matlack. You're also a co-sponsor, and I apologize. Did you wish to speak in support of the bill?
No, I am a co-sponsor, but I'm happy to hear others speak on behalf of this bill. It's one I do support.
Thank you. And is Speaker Fecto in the queue? Cheryl? No.
He
Okay.
is. Would you like me to let him in?
Speaker Ryan Fecto?
Do you want me to let him in?
Speaker Ryan
Oh,
Fecto?
no, Justin Fecto.
Okay, and
No.
he's,
This is Justin.
okay. Who else is, Brian, if you can admit some more people that are testifying for, and then,
Yep, we have Brian Lombardozzi is already in there, ready to go.
good afternoon, Mr. Lombardo.
Now,
Good afternoon, Chairman, and thank you to the chairs and members of this committee for the opportunity to testify today in support of LD 1411, the Buy American Build Maine Act. My name is Brian Lombardozzi. I'm the Vice President for State Government Affairs for the Alliance of American Manufacturing, which is a labor management partnership between the United Steelworkers and some of America's leading manufacturing companies. Together, we support LD 1411 to create a preference for American manufactured materials in public works projects. I'd also like to take this moment to associate myself with the statements from Senate President Jackson, Mr. Waxman, and the Maine AFL-CIO. Had I known today, I would have worn my American Roots fleece because we are a proud customer of American Roots for our organization, and they're a great company, and we're happy to see the work that they've been doing in their expansion. However, today we're speaking about Buy American and Build Maine with the backdrop of millions of Americans who are still unemployed, including over 500,000 fewer manufacturing jobs since February of 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused unfathomable pain for Americans, both from a health and an economic standpoint. The V-shaped recovery being celebrated by Wall Street has not been shared by hundreds of thousands of factory workers and their families who've been left wondering how they'll pay rent, let alone get back on their feet once they're able to get vaccinated and return to some semblance of our past normal lives. As was mentioned before, earlier this year, President Biden signed an executive order strengthening Buy American provisions, which is an action to what we saw the former administration do in 2017. Nationally, this is a strong bipartisan issue, which is reflected this year in 2021 with other state legislatures, such as the expansion of Buy America that was mentioned in New York by Senate President Jackson. Most recently, the Texas Republican-controlled Senate unanimously passed an expansion of their Buy American preferences, and the heavily Democratic New Jersey legislature passed the New Jersey Buy American Act unanimously. Not a single member in the Senate or the Assembly in New Jersey opposed that, and it is currently waiting Governor Murphy's signature. Reinvesting these tax dollars into the local and national economy, as the Buy American Build Maine Act proposes, is one way to promote growth, expand the tax base, and create more job opportunities for middle-class Americans, as a lot of folks have already said today. And it was also said that Maine state agencies are already accustomed to applying Buy American preferences when they're executing programs funded by federal grants. This is a long-standing practice that the federal government, and as mentioned, many other states have. It's well understood by contracting officers and bidders on public projects. States such as Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and West Virginia all have similar preferences in statute to the bill that you're considering today. These domestic content preferences that are in the bill are also consistent with all of the international trade obligations that the state of Maine and the United States have. And no doubtedly, at some point, members of this committee and probably the broader legislature will be hearing from our friends from the North in Canada, where our partners also have a presence. But I would like to point out that under our current trade agreements with Canada, the US suppliers have access procurement to only 7 of Canada's more than 40 crown corporations, which are similar to what our US federal agencies are. Canada may come in and tell you they do not have a Buy Canada preference like we have a Buy America preference. But the truth is they do have provisions on the books that do favor Canadian manufacturers over those from outside the country, as do many of the European Union countries we deal with, as do many of our trade partners, which is all consistent with the WTO's General Procurement Agreement on Trade. As I mentioned, the U.S. does not have unrestricted access to Canada's municipal procurements through any trade agreement, neither NAFTA Chapter 10, which is now the USMCA, nor the WTO General Procurement Agreement apply to the Canadian municipalities. And Canada made some municipal procurement market commitments in the 2010 bilateral with the United States, but those commitments expired in September of 2011. And I do know that our labor partner, the United Steelworkers, is made a commitment to its Canadian members and its U.S. members to explore possibilities of working together to, discuss access of Canadian products to future Buy American investments on a federal level. And we would encourage our friends from Canada to engage with the Biden administration about this instead of taking a state-by-state approach as we've seen them doing in the past years. As I mentioned, Canada does not have a Buy Canada.
Mr.
Yes.
Lombard, if you could sum it up in 30 seconds, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So there is Canadian content and local preference policy in various cities in Canada like Toronto, Quebec, Vancouver, etc. And I would just like to state out that a lot of our trade partners do this. It's standard practice. A lot of other states do what this bill does, and I encourage you to support LD 1411 as we do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay. See, Mr. Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sir, for your testimony. You touched earlier on the employment situation and so many Americans who are without jobs, and even here in Maine, so many folks without jobs. I'm have you heard of from the business community? I know the place where I stay, they're begging for workers. You go through any town, they're begging for workers. What do you think the impact this bill will have on the employment situation in the state of Maine and places begging for workers?
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for finding workers. Part of what I will say this is typically manufacturing jobs, especially unionized manufacturing jobs, offer fairly high family supporting wages that support a middle class lifestyle. I'll point to none other than Mr. Waxman's comments about his expansion of his business this year and his ability to, it looks like more than double the amount of workers that he has working for him that he was able to do in a very short period of time. And I know right now we represent a lot of major steel companies here in the United States, including U.S. Steel, Cliffs Natural Resources, and AK Steel. And I know this is also true of some of the places that you guys have up in Maine in the paper industry. Sometimes the capacity is down. And if that capacity was to go back up, there will be people who are sitting on the bench right now who could come back to work. So we could see a pretty quick upturn if we were to see Maine make this commitment. And I think the quality of those jobs would be ones that Mainers would be delighted to have. I think in analyzing some of the work, the job issues that are out there right now, you just have to kind of compare what those wages are that are on offer for folks. And I do know that compared to some other jobs out there, a career in manufacturing does offer the opportunity of a middle-class lifestyle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardozzi. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Lombardozzi this afternoon? There being none, thank you for coming to State and Local Government today, sir.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is Grant Provost. Mr. Provost, welcome to State and Local Government.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Grant Provost. I'm the business agent for Ironworkers Local 7 in the state of Maine. I rise in favor of LD 1411, Buy American, Build Maine Act. For my trade in particular, we see an influx of steel erectors from out-of-state locations flooding the Maine market. Companies from New Hampshire and Vermont who can undercut local wages have been gobbling up the work in Portland, Maine, as well as throughout the state. It has been difficult to compete with the low wages. Just in a one-block area around the east end of Portland, two of the biggest projects had 0 companies from Maine. The precast parking job went to New Hampshire-based company. The structural iron went to a company out of Vermont, and the foundation was done by a Massachusetts-based company that was flying their construction workers up from Fall River. This is on a project for a local brewery. The only thing local about the project was the general contractor who subbed the job out to out-of-state companies who brought their out-of-state employees. One of these contractors did not register as a foreign entity with the Secretary of State or fill out the proper documentation to work in the state. I was on an organizing drive across the street from this job talking to structural iron workers on a project. They were all from Virginia or North Carolina. Mainers and Maine companies are getting locked out of jobs in their home state by low-paying out-of-state companies with poor safety records and pay so low that no company in this state can compete. This bill will help level the playing field by requiring out-of-state companies to hire local as much as possible. This is important to help train the people of our state in the trades to make our own self-sufficient construction economy. The contractors that Ironworkers Local 7 work with in the state of Maine are either local or when they come from out of state, they hire local. It's one of the great benefits of being a union signatory contractor. When you bid a job away from your base, there is a readily available local workforce there to pull from. Your company can show up with a few key employees and then pull from the local labor force. This behavior is the type that should be encouraged and followed by any contractor. However, in Maine, we think somehow it's to be different. Meanwhile, out-of-state contractors build our hospitals, colleges, judicial centers, and breweries using an out-of-state workforce, and that's just in the Portland, Maine area. I'm deeply honored to show my support for Senate President Troy Jackson's bill today, as he fights every day for the working men and women of the state. Troy is doing his best, the best he can, to well represent not only his constituents in the county, but all Mainers. For this, I will always be eternally grateful. It is with my sincerest hopes that Troy doesn't have to go this road alone, and this committee will stand beside him, ushering this bill onto the legislature for their approval. Thank you for your time. I'd answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Provost. Do we have any questions for him this afternoon? There being none, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Carol Sanborn. Welcome to State and Local, Ms. Sanborn.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Carol Sanborn. I'm a resident of Dresden and am president of Machinists Union Local S89. I'm here today to ask that you pass LD 1411. This bill gives us all an opportunity that does not present itself often, a chance to come together to champion what should be a non-controversial effort to bolster both Maine business and labor. Labor wants business to thrive and be successful. We value good jobs and value employers who take pride in producing high quality products or services and who pay respectable wages and benefits. These employers exist in Maine and they deserve to be given a fair chance to compete for this work. As Mainers, we pride ourselves on integrity and work ethic. We should not participate in bleeding our own money to outside interests. They do not invest in our local economy, as others have pointed out. Likewise, as Americans, whenever possible, we should obviously purchase goods and services that support our own national economy. Our businesses who operate with integrity deserve to be rewarded with our contracts. Our workforce deserves to have employers who pay enough to provide us with the ability to pay commuting costs, daycare, health insurance, and living expenses. We need to help employers who will reinvest in their own companies rather than stripping them of their assets. With this bill, we have the opportunity to join together to institute targeted local economic stimulation that benefits all of us, invests in our future, and ensures a reliable supply chain. I encourage you to do the right thing for our businesses and citizens by voting ought to pass on LD 1411. And I'd like to add, in response to a prior person's comments about employers begging for workers. Maine has workers. We have a lot of workers, but we don't have workers who can afford to work for low wages that don't pay their commuting costs and their daycare expenses. And many of the businesses that are complaining about not being able to find workers are not able to find them because they're not willing to pay. This bill will raise the standard of living and force those other employers who are not currently doing the right thing to help raise the standard of living and contribute to the well-being of all Mainers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanborn. Senator Rosen, you have a question?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention that my husband and I travel all over the state of Maine. We eat our way around the state of Maine on weekends. I live in Bucksport. Went over to Ellsworth. Every single sign from Bucksport to Bar Harbor had, the help wanted sign. One in particular was Martin's, and it said, "We will pay you $1,000 up front today if you sign up with us, and we will pay you a good wage." Went to Kennebunk and Kennebunkport. There's a hot dog stand down there, a beautiful hot dog hamburger stand. They said, if you will come work for us, we will pay medical, dental, $18 an hour. I mean, I've, as we travel around, being a senator, I ask so many questions. And, my small shacks around that are, the seafood places, trying to get kids, they have to wait till the kids get out of school before they work. They're giving them higher wages. It's just my personal account of what I'm seeing on weekends. But to pay medical, dental, and then $1,000 up front to start, just so they can get an apartment or whatever, I think the people in Maine are really trying.
Some of them are, but not all of them are. And the ones who really are trying really deserve to be rewarded by having, as others have said, the level playing field. There are many good Maine employers who operate with integrity and treat their employees very well, and they deserve to have a fair chance.
Well, before all this started, we had our own business, our own clothing store that was in the family for 103 years. And we paid medical, dental, because we wanted to keep our people and had them for a very long time. And I know a lot of businesses, small businesses do that. But like you said, not all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Toole, do you have a question for Ms. Sanborn?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my question is to Ms. Sanborn is whether you're aware in your own community or around the state, whether you know of employers who are paying folks $500 or more, or even paying on just bonuses to come in for an interview. Have you heard whether that's the case? Whether
Personally aware in my community of those. I've heard of that with regard to like specialty jobs like nursing and other things. I don't disagree that they might be out there. I just don't have personal knowledge of that.
And I say that as I've heard from several businesses, my own neck of the woods, that they're paying people just to walk through the door to come for an interview. They're paying people to show up on time. They're paying people extra to show up on time.
In my work, I'm a workers' compensation paralegal, and I've been doing this for almost 40 years. And what I see is we have a lot of workers who were injured in their manufacturing or more dangerous jobs who have the ability to work, but when they do apply to a job that they would be able to do, but they have a black mark against them because they've had an injury, they're not hired because of that. So really, we have a lot of overlapping problems here. This involves workforce development, retraining, vocational rehabilitation, re-education of employers to realize that hiring someone who has a disability or a limitation on their physical ability is not a bad thing. You know, it's fine to give them a chance, and it doesn't count against you. But there's a lot of misinformation that way. And I think we really have a large untapped workforce in Maine that is latent because they're not able to get hired when they do have an interview. As soon as someone hears that there's some sort of a, an injury in their past.
Thank you, Ms. Sanborn. Representative Toole, did you have a follow-up? Or are you all set?
No, I just was wanting to thank Ms. Sanborn for acknowledging that there are many reasons why folks have issues getting employed. The employment situation is very multi-layered and dynamics beyond the scope of this bill. So thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Are there any further questions for Ms. Sanborn? Thank you for being with us today, Ms. Sanborn.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Mr. McCabe, welcome back to state and local government.
Good afternoon. It's great to be back in state and local government. Chair Matlack, Chair Baldacci, I'm not sure if you're in the Zoom. It's sometimes hard to see all the heads and screens. Distinguished members of the State and Local Government Committee, my name is Jeff McCabe. I serve as the Legislative and Political Director for Maine Service Employees Association. We are a labor union representing 13,000 members statewide, also including our retirees. I was thinking about this bill a lot in the last couple days. I had signed up to testify either this morning or yesterday, and I wasn't 100% sure what I would talk about. I've had the ability to serve on the Citizen Trade Policy Commission. I represented, while I was in the legislature, the community of Skowhegan and a small sliver of East Madison. And every day I'm reminded of manufacturing and what Maine once was in the manufacturing economy. I also am proud to support local businesses, similar to the business that Senator Rosen spoke of, businesses that do pay livable wages, that do make those employees part of their family. And that's how I choose to support those businesses. I look for places like that to invest, to buy appliances, to buy furniture, to do those types of things. But I think one thing is clear. In the last year, it has shown us during this pandemic that we need to rethink how we as a society, as a state, as a country, make investments with our tax dollars. We need to do what we can to make sure that we have a strong economy, a strong manufacturing base, and that we are spending tax dollars to support that. We do, as this committee has talked about, need to make investments in making sure that people have livable wages, that we're doing things that will support childcare and so on. At the very beginning of the pandemic, we struggled as an organization to support our members who were essential frontline workers, to make sure that they had the PPE that they needed. In the early days of the pandemic, we were able to somehow source 1,000 masks right out of the gate from the folks at American Roots. We had members making masks. We bought hand sanitizer in 5-gallon jugs, and we distributed that around the state because our members didn't have that in their work sites. And it was clear to me at that point in time, as it has been clear throughout my life, that we really need to prioritize made in America. And it's something I grew up as a child. My family was talked about the importance of supporting, jobs here in this country. So, I think it would be irresponsible of me as an individual in my role here at MSCA not to speak on this behalf. And I also did want to recognize the efforts of the sponsor, who has continued to work this issue to address concerns that have been raised both by this committee in the past, but also, by the administration and others. And I've also watched over the last year as the federal government in the state of Maine has made huge investments in propping up and in establishing manufacturing here in central Maine. As Senator Rosen spoke before, I too drive around the state of Maine and look for great little places to eat. I too look for exciting projects. And I've watched in central Maine as manufacturing has come back online with the federal government's support, establishing places to actually manufacture swabs associated with COVID testing. So that to me is very strong. I know many of you live in places like I do, like the 201 corridor.
Excuse me, Mr. McCabe, could you wrap it up, please?
Absolutely. And I know that you see, goods leaving and coming, from Canada and from overseas. And I just think we need to prioritize. And to the point in regards to paying people, I did want to raise, it is vital that we pay people in the state of Maine a livable wage. We currently have hundreds of state employees that make under $15 an hour. And that's an issue that I'm happy to bring up with the committee in the future. Thank you, Chair Matlack.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for being here today. Do we have any questions for Mr. McCabe? Thank you very much for being with us today. Welcome back, Senator Baldacci. We have two more folks who are speaking in favor of the bill. We have Shane McDougall, and then we have Chris Lozier, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that very much. Mr. McDougall, welcome.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Shane McDougall. I'm a citizen of Aroostook County. I don't have any specific organization that I'm with. I was asked to by Senator Jackson to testify on LD 1411. When I was asked to testify, I downloaded the proposed bill and I read it. I think this bill doesn't necessarily encompass my story specifically, but my testimony certainly addresses the overall idea of buying Maine first. First, I think it's important to provide a little background on myself. I grew up in the Bangor area where I delivered newspapers at the age of 9. I picked blueberries at the age of 12, ran blueberry crews at the age of 17, and worked at a local pizza shop through high school. My wife and I graduated from the University of Maine. I'm from the civil engineering program and her the nursing program. I'm currently a licensed professional engineer and started my own engineering consulting firm just over 2 years ago. My wife is now a nurse practitioner who currently owns the only direct primary care health clinic north of Bangor. When I graduated, the only business located in Maine that I was interested at the time was located in Aroostook County. So I applied and I was employed at Huber Engineered Woods in Easton. Everyone asks my wife how she got to the county, and she always replies, "I followed a man." We have been in the county now for 17 years, and we couldn't be happier. I think this is a short description that tells you all just how Maine we actually are. Aroostook County is not for everybody, but both my wife and I, as professionals, have made it a decent living and enjoy where we have rooted down. We have done this because our hard work ethic and determination to succeed. As this relates to LD 1411, let me tell you another quick business story that hopefully dovetails this together and shows why Senator Jackson asked me to testify. As I previously stated, I opened my own engineering consulting business 2 years ago, where I employed 5 people as of January 1st. All of these employees are sub-consulted to the Maine DOT highway and bridge programs as construction inspectors. Just recently, a large project to replace the international bridge in Madawaska was bid. I've been working with one employee and particularly along with the bridge construction program as we knew the project was coming to fruition and would need good local help to make it happen. Unfortunately for me, Maine DOT decided these services needed to be obtained through an RFQ process and the budget would be over the threshold of that process. A large out-of-state firm contacted one of my employees and offered his young family basically a good benefit package. I think this is very important that this legislation defines out-of-state firm, which I think is written, really gives me a true Maine-based business any more or less advantage. I'm a small business and can't afford to offer my employees insurance packages, 401ks, et cetera. I hope to build my business to that point, but right now that is not financially feasible. I am sure this is not the first time any of you have heard that story. This large out-of-state firm stated to this employee that they would not chase this work unless he joined their team, clearly headhunting. In the end, the employee resigned and joined the other firm, resulting in hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue for my business over the next several years. As you can imagine, this just took the wind out of my sails. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the state is constantly seeking how to save money. And because of that process in place, they'll end up spending much more. To put into perspective, these larger firms have overhead rates much higher than mine, and that just costs more money to the state. My point is that most Maine-based companies like mine can save the state money, and applying legislation that shows preference for those true Maine-based companies is something I'm in favor. It's my hunch that most of the money these larger firms take in from the state-sponsored projects don't stay within the borders of Maine, which is, as I understand, is the true nature of this bill. This bill should define the true Maine-based companies and suppliers and put preference on those small to medium businesses like mine that make a local difference. These larger companies have satellite offices and provide employment to Maine residents and pay employment taxes. And though I read LD 1411, this doesn't really change anything for them. I'm in no way looking for a handout or a leg up. Every business should be treated equal and provided the same means to procure businesses from the state. And I think for the most part, this is the case. That said, the state should be investing in its own and providing incentive for business like mine to foster and grow.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall, if you could wrap it up in 30 seconds.
My business has an asterisk next to it and on the list of consultants doing Maine DOT. I'm just not sure exactly what that provides. So thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. McDougall. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Chris Lozier. Mr. Lozier.
Yes,
Good afternoon. You're here to speak in favor.
yes.
Okay, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Chris. My name is Chris
You have 3
Lozier.
minutes.
I'm originally from Fort Kent, but have relocated down to Glenburn because of business. Having grown up in the county and joined the family business with my father back in '90. We are a small promotional products printing business. We had the luxury of having all the paper mills back in the 80s and the 90s to do business with. And as those slowly started to disappear, we were always reinventing ourselves and trying to find new avenues for sources of income. And having relocated into the Bangor area to try and find more and more businesses in a, I should say, shorter distance of travel, doing business with the state has become something that I try to do over and over again. There are several things that I understand about the procurement system and agree with. I agree with the lowest bidding process, and that's fine. My issue is that if you're going to give tax dollars to out-of-state businesses that do the same thing that you have in-state businesses doing for percentages of like 1 and 2% of the cost. I just don't understand how that can be beneficial. There have been several situations that I have lost bids on the procurement site that have been in like one bid was $10 more, and most recently one bid was an $80,000 bid that I was $1,800 higher than the out-of-state company. And of course, that was awarded to the out-of-state company. For an $80,000 bid, I just couldn't understand why in these times that you wouldn't want to either give the preferential treatment to the in-state business rather than give handouts to people with the extra unemployment or the PPP, when I could be surviving on winning bids of that sort with preferential, in-state treatment, rather than having to, basically close the doors because there's no business to be had because of COVID. When opportunities like that do arise and you come up short, it's very frustrating to understand how you can live in a state that doesn't support you when you can be that close to to a bid price that and the poor little girls over at procurement, when I call or I email and I ask them why, and they tell me to submit some sort of letter to somebody in the government. I mean, that it just frustrates me that there can't be a better way to do this, and have this bill here give that treatment to in-state businesses rather than sending our tax dollars to out-of-state businesses. When you think of the income tax alone that I would pay on an $80,000 job compared to the amount that I was over, it would have been a win-win for the state one way or another. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that I deal with, and those are the kinds of comments that I wanted to make to try and push this bill through to help Senator Jackson, get approval for it.
Mr. Lozier, thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Any questions for Mr. Lozier? Mr. Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sir, for testifying. When you put out for contracts, have you ever bid on a contract in another state, or do you know folks that have? And
well, I'll tell you that with all the free time on my hands because of COVID, again, I do a promotional products business. I sell businesses T-shirts and caps and pens and pencils. It's basically for walk-in traffic or for employee incentive or anything like that. I mean, with COVID, there has been no walk-in traffic. I lost the entire year last year because there were no home and garden shows. There were no graduations. There were no, you couldn't walk into any business. So nobody's handing out pens and nobody's handing out calendars anymore. So with all the time that I had in my hands, yeah, I did go to every procurement site in the nation and tried to sign up to be able to bid on out-of-state jobs as well. I will tell you that there are no the closest New England state that allows an out-of-state contractor to bid on their procurement site was New York. New Hampshire, Massachusetts, it said if you are not a registered state business, you cannot sign up for bids on this site. So, yeah, I've done it. I've signed up for some in Florida and Montana and Connecticut and those places. I get emails when there are bids on site. Trying to do that kind of stuff. But
all right, so I ask that question, should Maine be doing the same thing, for lack of a better term, excluding businesses from other states of Maine? you're finding it hard to do business in other states because you're an out-of-state business to them.
My thought process in this is that you can open up the bidding process to whoever you want to, with a stipulation that if it's an in-state business that is within a 2 or 2.5% of the lowest bid, that there should be an in-state preferential treatment to that business. That's my thought process in that.
Okay, I just wanted to think through your position there. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Toole. Any other questions or comments? So seeing none, Mr. Lozier, welcome to glad to have you in the greater Bangor area.
Thank you.
Best wishes on building your into the future and your successful business. So thank you, sir, for coming here today.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is, the against. And Cheryl, do you want to let those individuals in? Okay, you might as well have Cheryl. You might as well have all of them come in, and we can do one right after the other.
You got it. There are 4 of them.
Yep.
Actually, there are now only 3 of them.
Okay.
And
So
they are all in.
thank you very much. So Jason, you're gonna have to help me with the last name. Baldacci is a hard name too, but Stuheit. Well, you're on mute, so you just need to give us a correct pronunciation.
There we go.
There
Yes,
we go.
too tight. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Go right ahead, Jason. You have the floor for 3 minutes. Is what I've recognized people for.
Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and the members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Jason Studheit, and I'm a resident of Brooks and Waldo County and a local business owner. Today, I'm representing Associated Builders and Contractors of Maine. ABC is a national association with 69 chapters representing more than 21,000 merit construction and construction-related firms. Here in Maine, ABC represents over 170 businesses across the state. Many are located in districts that you all represent. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. As a member of ABC's Maine's Government Affairs Committee, I'm here today to speak in opposition of LD 1411, an act to establish the Maine Buy American Build Maine Act. This bill currently would place unreasonable burdens on small businesses across the state that once again put Maine businesses community at a disadvantage. First, I would like to thank President Jackson for the positive changes he has made to this bill following our testimony during the 129th legislature. The added language ensuring that this bill will not be in conflict with federal law, therefore will not have impact on federally funded projects, is welcome and positive change. However, we still have concerns regarding other aspects of this bill. We continue to express concern regarding the requirement that all goods purchased for a particular project be purchases from a United States company. This requirement could add substantial costs to projects that would pass up from the contractor to the owner, which is the state of Maine, and therefore onto the taxpayer, us. With more money needed to purchase these goods, there will be less available to launch new projects, and the state could fall short completing the necessary improvements to our infrastructure outlined in the DOT work plan. Furthermore, global supply chain are still feeling the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic as producers continue to scale up production following pandemic-related capacity reductions. With more uncertainty surrounding how long it will take for supply chains to return to their pre-pandemic levels, now is not the time to restrict how contractors procure their needed supplies. Here's one of my biggest things is the waiver provision is as stipulated in the bill suggests to us that Maine may not be ready to engage in the underlying idea that this bill hopes to implement. At best, requiring the heads of state agencies to file a waiver with the governor to purchase goods produced outside The requirements of this bill will lead to slowdown in project implementation and undoubtedly lead to project delays and increased cost to Maine taxpayers. For example, I'm a general contractor. We bid on hospitals, schools, medical facilities. Schools, now is the bidding season. We have a short window to complete those projects. I have a school bids next week or tomorrow. We have to start it within 30 days, complete it before school starts. If I have to go get waivers for projects, how long is that going to take? We don't have time. So that's the biggest thing right now with COVID, time. We can't get materials. We're looking for substitutions. It's just not a timely thing. And then lastly, the section regarding awarding contracts to in-state contractors continues to be problematic for our members. Though we certainly appreciate the clarifying language that has been added to this provision following our discussion last year, we continue to question whether such a provision is needed. The Maine DOT and other state departments already award the vast majority of their contracts to in-state contractors. In the case of the DOT, 93% of contracts are already awarded to Maine companies. Adding these time-consuming steps to the bidding process could interfere with our members' abilities to bid for more out-of-state contractors and further expand their business. A couple things I wanted to add to that is, the way it's written, an out-of-state company has no incentive to be a low bid, neither does an in-state company, because they have a second chance to put in another price if the out-of-state company is lower. It's just there's no incentive to do a good job bidding. And the other thing on a lot of state and federal bids, you have the 5% bidder incentive for disadvantaged businesses, women-owned, veteran-owned, disabled. If it was changed, there's other wording that could help make this a better bill. So currently, as written, we're saying this ought not to pass. I appreciate your time, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Representative Toole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sir, for your testimony. There's a lot to think about there. One of the things, I know you represent a national group. Do you have concerns around this bill and whether this bill could have the unintended consequence of creating a trade war amongst the states, or essentially closing every state off? Say if Maine does this, are other states where Maine businesses do business in, are they going to retaliate and make it harder for Maine businesses to get contracts in other states? Do you have concerns along those lines? Or I know that was a concern last year, and I wondered if that concern still remained.
There might be members with that concern. Personally, I'm not concerned about that. I'm more concerned with, as other people stipulated, we don't have enough employees. I can't find them. We already pay our employees the state prevailing wage scale for our county on the B1 and the B2 list. Every employee that works out in the field has a company vehicle, company fuel, an IRA retirement plan. We have employees that have 5 weeks of paid time off. I can't find help. This doesn't help me. In Maine, we're tying our hands and costing more money the way this is currently written. That's the problem I have is, we contractors in our organization do very well. Not all contractors do, but I think most contractors try, in the building trades. We do residential and commercial work. We try to pay the best that we can. But it's the preference is the way it's worded. The state of Maine is going to pay for it in the long run, which comes back to the taxpayer. And that's, taxpayers are already getting hit hard in Maine. We're heavily taxed. It hurts.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Matthew Marks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Hey, good afternoon, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack. I appreciate the time to talk to you today. My name is Matt Marks. I live in Scarborough, lifelong Mainer, and I represent the Associated General Contractors of Maine. I'll follow up because you have my written testimony available. I'm not going to cover everything there, but I think I'll address just a couple of the concerns that were brought up, if that's okay. One of them right away is for contractors in particular. There's a lot of discussion on this so far about wages, and the majority of our projects, in particular those with public agencies, are done with a prevailing wage scale. So wage concerns in our arena are not as they might be in some of the other procurement agencies have with some of the other work that you were citing, that were cited earlier. Second, as far as the process goes, and that's the reason I laid it out pretty detailed in my testimony this time and last time, a little bit confused about how the agencies will manage a bid. And I provided you an example, but if there are 3 bidders, one of them's out of state, the other state's a low bidder, the other 2 have a chance to match that bid. I'm not clear about how you will resolve who actually wins at the end of the day. Seems really complicated and convoluted process. Putting together a bid for construction might be unlike some of the other bids. I'm not suggesting that any of those are easy to put together, but for construction, you have thousands of components. And of course, it takes some time to put together again. There's a hard cost associated with that. Also, look, fundamentally, I'd love to see more American-made products sold and used and bought here. But how do we rectify the fact that, when we close these doors and live a bit in a silo, we export a good deal of products from Maine, whether it be blueberries, lobsters, all the other things that we purchase and sell and buy. I hate to see us be put in that box for a couple of reasons. One, our members work all throughout the country. We have some that focus just on the Northeast, some that are operating in about nearly 50 states. Some of the states have reciprocity clauses where this same rule would be applied there. And that concerns me greatly. I don't share the same sentiment about working in New Hampshire or Vermont or Massachusetts that you heard from some others. We have members who are actively building bridges and other structures there. And, I can send you the state law matrix we have for every 50 states when it comes to construction. And you can compare about the buy local provisions. They are either not enforced or pretty weak, or have conditions like I think in Iowa, for example, they prefer ethanol gasoline products used. So there's some things like that. But in '92, New Hampshire State Attorney General issued an opinion saying that any legislative attempt to mandate an in-state preference policy would conflict with the existing legislation that requires the award of a capital budget contract to the lowest responsible bidder following a competitive bid process. And I would say that Maine contractors are able to bid there competitively under the current system. So I'm not suggesting that construction is all that different, but I think in this case we are competing competitively throughout New England. And one of the things about the market here can be really fickle. So we have specialty companies that may focus on bridge or highway. If there's a low amount of bridges, for example, in a particular work plan one year, it'll have to push some of our main contractors to chase work in other states. And I worry about putting us in a box because those main contractors are keeping Maine people employed and working throughout New England. And certainly we'd love to have them build as many bridges as possible here. And you heard earlier from the statement, it's over 90% of the contracts, at least at the Department of Transportation. And I think BGS was pretty close last time they testified in this bill with what gets awarded to Maine. Last thing I'll leave you with, there are a good deal of contractors that bid here and then set up permanent residency. And I'm not going to name them off, but there are dozens of them that came to do work here and they found it to be a good place to do work. And now they have permanent offices. That helps grow Maine's workforce just as much as it does some of the other things that we've done at the legislature. And I think that's a great asset. And I would hope that we would invite more companies to compete here. Also, when I look at this, I just—
Mr. Marks, you have like 10 seconds if you can wrap it up.
Yeah, everything's contained in my testimony. I'll share the in-state preferences for the 50 states, but I appreciate the time today and happy to answer any questions.
So I'll get to Representative Toole in a second. I think the testimony that we've heard, Mr. Marks, is that a number of other states have preferences. I guess for the work session, it might be helpful for us to get information on other states, but they're not putting up, if they've already put up roadblocks how would us basically doing the same thing they're doing really make things any worse for Maine workers?
Sure. Let me tell you this. My sense, Senator, and I'll share with you what I have for information about every other state. It's not the same. We are actively competing in those other states. We're not seeing the same type of process that's written here. This is really complicated. I don't know of a state where we've had to juggle what you have in this legislation, but I'll share with you. Happy that has all the links. You can view it yourself and make a decision if you believe that that's the case or not. But for construction, I don't see it.
Well, I think that's an important element of this overall discussion. And then you're aware that if 2 or more bids are submitted that are similar, that a preference will be given to those businesses that have 60% of the employees or more. So, the bids themselves have to be similar in order to give the preference.
Yes, sir. I agree. That's I wonder what the term similar is going to be. I'm sure there's a rule or something that'll happen there. But again, there's a company today doing work on the bridge connecting Maine, New Hampshire. It's a good union contractor. I don't know whether or not they have 60% of their workers are from Maine, but I would hate to see them excluded. I think they're a good company. I think they can compete. I don't think it's a reason to not let them do work here. I'd like, I think there are more companies like that who will find a good home in Maine. And again, we see it all the time. There are companies who landed here that, did a job and now they're permanent places in Maine. I think that's good for everybody. It's healthy for the market, in our market. I'm not suggesting all the other stuff.
Right. And this bill may actually encourage that development. If there's a preference, they may have an incentive to move some operations to Maine, but I guess we could deal with those issues at the work session.
Yes.
Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I did want to touch more on the reciprocity between states. And one of the concerns, and maybe you were the one who brought it up last time, I do seem to remember it coming up, it's certainly not anybody's intent to close off business to Maine businesses. But the point at the time was, for folks who were opposed, one of the points was that it could come back and hurt Maine businesses unintentionally. Do you have any specific examples of how that has happened in other states, whether now or for the work session?
Yeah, I can certainly ask members if they've run into that in any other state. For reciprocity reasons, I believe, and I can't remember, I know last time I did the due diligence on this, I think Massachusetts already has a law in place that cites reciprocity. My colleagues in New Hampshire, I'll just tell you, they were watching this very closely because they certainly don't want to see an unfair advantage in construction contracting. We do not have the same experience that others have with purchasing other items in New Hampshire. We actively have people building roads and bridges there and in Vermont. So I'm not seeing the same thing others are. And I apologize not having those exact details, but I'll bring them to the work session for you.
And with that, I remember last time there were a whole laundry list of entities that were exempt for all or part of this bill, whether it be university systems or DOT or whatever the case may be. Do you see that possibly creating an issue as well, to have multiple systems being in place at the same time, or is that not such a big deal?
I think it depends on where this bill lands, but I would agree that a procurement system generally overall that has some standardization is helpful. It provides that consistency to the markets. But in the other states, anytime we see something where there's an advantage or a perceived advantage or a problem with procurement, we do address it. We don't simply advocate for Maine companies just working here. We will call other states when we see some unfair advantage and have that discussion with our colleagues and also state agencies or lawmakers. I hate to see that happen in the United States. I think we're United States for a reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Marks, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The Honorable Peter Mills, welcome.
Yes, can you hear me, sir? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good.
It's a pleasure seeing you.
Well, Senator Baldacci and Representative Matlick and other honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I've been asked by the DOT if I could represent to you that I'm speaking for them as well on this because they were tied up in another committee.
Are you speaking for the entire administration as well?
I might be. I hope to. We'll see. That remains to be seen. I hope it doesn't get that far.
Okay. I was going to ask you a question, though, Peter. Is
Sir?
being brother of the governor all it's cracked up to be?
No, you wouldn't believe the lobbying I get on some notion that maybe I have influence, which I assure you I do not.
No, I am just teasing you.
You've
I'm dying to ask you that question. So
you've
good to see
lived that
you.
dream as well, I think.
Yeah, no, I remember that time. So go right ahead in all seriousness. I look forward to hearing what you have to say, sir.
Okay, well, my first question is, why wasn't this bill passed 201 years ago when we became a state? Why hasn't it been passed in all of the other 49 states? You read the title of this bill, you say, I'm in. This is a great bill. Of course, we ought to be buying Maine and buying American and let it go at that. Well, the reason is that there are, and I think when the president of the Senate was speaking today, he was talking about 37 other states that have it. I believe what he's referring to is a list that came up last time this bill was talked about. There are 37 states, including Maine, that have signed, that have enacted what I would call retaliation laws. And Maine law right now says that if some other state does this to us, we will do it to them. And when you put that law into effect in Maine and in the other 36 states that people have been able to find it in, it means that states don't do this. That is, they don't have preferences for in-state vendors, because if they do, then it will come back on us. And companies like Reed and Reed that were working over in Vermont last year during the pandemic, companies like Chenbro that are building bridges and power lines in Illinois. I have a neighbor who works for Chenbro. He's been away for a better part of a year building a huge power line in Illinois. That work would dry up if we all had laws like this. And so the states, including Maine, have all passed these, what I call the retaliation laws, which prevent states from doing it. I urge you to get your analysts to look into this. This is summarized in my written testimony, and I think you folks can carry it from there. The other part of this bill, and this is two bills really. It's
can I, Lynn? I couldn't find his written testimony. Is it been put up?
Oh, I tried to put it up. I got a receipt.
Did you? Okay. Well, I'll look forward to seeing that. But you've reviewed the bill, I'm assuming, obviously.
Yes. I reviewed it a year ago when it died between the houses. I testified then.
I mean, it does require that the bids be substantially similar before there's.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Anytime you give a preference of any kind, the retaliation law says that you give a preference to your own people over the bids that come in from another state, then that other state has the right to retaliate against you on the same basis and create a percentage of benefit that is equal to the benefit that you gave to your own bidder. These laws were, and I think they're all identical, and I think there are 37 of them. And I will see if I can find the website that listed them all, because this committee should be aware of it. Otherwise, as I said at the beginning, there's no reason why every state in the union shouldn't pass this. I mean, for your own protection. And why didn't we do it in 1820? There are two bills here, though. There is the Maine preference bill, which is the first part I've dealt with here. And then there is, and I might close by saying I listened very carefully to Ben Waxman. I did this time and a year ago from American Roots. He said he does 95% of his business. It's all made here in Maine, but 95% of his revenue comes from out of state. If we pass this law, all of the other states to whom he sells, if he sells to public agencies, those public agencies would have the right under this retaliation law to retaliate against him and say, sorry, you're not eligible to sell your goods here. We have to buy from an in-state vendor that is willing to match your low bid. All right, the other part of this bill is the Buy American provision. And I said a year ago, and I will say again this time, I don't have a clue how we can enforce that effectively. It means that that DOT could not buy an American automobile because the chips come from Taiwan, and those are worth a lot of money. And we don't make chips that have enough technology in them now in the United States that we can build cars anymore that don't rely on them. This is a tragedy. And Biden, God bless Joe Biden, he's going to tackle this issue, but it's going to take, months and years before we get on top of it. But I
never thought I would say this, but Honorable Peter Mills, if you could wrap it up in 10 seconds.
I will. I'm a senator. I'm inclined to, carry on and on. I'm a former senator, and I'm going to stop talking because everything else is in my testimony. This is two bills. They both have they have great titles and tragic substance. Thank you.
Well, I think we can agree to disagree at this point, but are there any questions for the Honorable Peter Mills? Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Mills, for your work on this legislation. Your recollections of it and mine are similar from 2 years ago. Did you want to briefly explain what you talked a lot about the Buy Maine, but could you talk a short version of your objections to the other part, the Buy? Yeah, it's too late in the day. The Buy American, the Buy American.
Well, I think he stated his objections, but if you want to give
I won't say anything.
2 or 3 sentences.
Well, I would simply say that it's unadministrable, and I hope that the feds figure this out. It's a very complex area. You can't buy anything nowadays that doesn't have substantial quantities of international components in it, and not just Canadian, but Chinese even. And so it's just not administrable. It will raise havoc with our procurement people.
Thank you. And the other question I had, and I know in the past, the DOT there was some question about whether they were exempt from part of it and not exempt from part of it. Is that the case with Maine Turnpike Authority as well? What will this do for either DOT or Maine Turnpike Authority directly?
Well, before we get very far, the bill exempts the DOT and the Turnpike Authority.
In part, it does. It gets a little complicated, but we're not totally exempt from this bill.
But just for the record, it should be clear that the DOT and the Turnpike Authority are exempt from all the contracts having to do with construction, reconstruction, alteration, repair, improvement, or maintenance. So, I mean, that's a substantial part of the DOT. And
it's true. You're correct.
Okay.
And I would just end by saying that 97% of I went and personally reviewed our contracts for 4 years, found that 97% of the bids came from Maine contractors.
Okay. Okay, I see that Jessica, thank you very much, former Senator Peter Mills. And I see that Jessica Liberty is here. Are you also testifying in opposition?
Neither for nor against.
Oh, neither for nor against. Okay. Could you introduce yourself and let us know what organization you're with? And you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. My name is Jessica Liberty. I am the Policy Relations Manager for the Manufacturers Association of Maine. We represent 400 manufacturers and the 29,000 workers they employ. We are a nonpartisan, pro-growth, pro-manufacturing trade organization. The Manufacturers Association of Maine is here today to offer our comments, neither for nor against LD 1411, an act to establish the Maine Buy American and Build Maine Act. Our Executive Circle for Manufacturing Excellence spent considerable time weighing this legislation. We met twice with President Jackson and thank him for his time and the concept of this bill. Advanced manufacturing plays a vital role in the Maine economy. There are 1,600 manufacturing businesses in our state. The manufacturing sector's direct contribution to the state's gross domestic product is $5.9 billion. Manufacturing provides 56,000 Mainers with jobs with an average salary of $58,000 a year, 32% higher than all other sectors. Payroll tops $3.2 billion and accounts for 12% of all wages paid in the state. Our industry has been one of the few that has weathered the pandemic fairly well. When COVID-19 hit, many of our members pivoted operations to meet the growing needs of healthcare and businesses and began producing much needed personal protective equipment and hand sanitizer. While the pandemic has not hit us as hard as other sectors, we are struggling. We face a severe workforce shortage. Today, there are more than 4,000 good paying jobs open across the state. The average age of someone working in manufacturing is 54 years old. Our situation will only worsen when those reaching retirement exit the workforce. LD 1411 has the potential to be a pro-manufacturing bill and to grow jobs in the state. These are top priorities for our association. The manufacturing sector represents 1/3 of the value-added U.S. economy and of the American workforce. Advanced manufacturing has the strongest direct multiplier effect. For every dollar invested, there is a $1.33 return. The only way for this bill to grow manufacturing within the state, however, is for the in-state contractors to receive the award. It is the ability to obtain these contracts that causes concern, specifically the definition of in-state contractor. I won't read that, but it is outlined in Chapter 168, subsection 2047 in the definitions number 3. It is our belief that this would allow larger companies such as Amazon, who have no physical headquarters here, the opportunity to submit bids as an organization would have a location in the state where business is conducted and individuals are employed, and which permits them to file a tax return or pay Maine employment taxes for the 2 years prior to the bid. Such larger entities would be at a greater advantage over small Maine-based companies. We wish to thank President Jackson for his efforts to try to assist our industry. We are thankful for the opportunity to address the committee this afternoon. Along with our written testimony, we have provided a copy of the economic impacts of advanced manufacturing for your consideration. We thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Liberty. We appreciate your time as well. Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there any other people wishing to testify? Cheryl, you're on mute.
That I am, and there are none. None.
Okay.
Nope.
So there are requests by committee members for information or materials or persons to be at the work session. Representative Toole?
Yeah, I'd request Senator Mills attend the work session just because of his insight and knowledge and experience both on the committee and in state government. And also the administration itself, if DAFs or somebody from there would walk us through the procurement process and what the impacts might be there.
Yeah, I think if DAF sent us, maybe a memo ahead of time would be helpful, just on the process, and because I think there's a fair amount of misinformation going out there. The bill is pretty straightforward, and the requirements can easily be met, but that's just my opinion right this second. Representative Matlack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just remind everybody that as I was going through, several of the speakers have presented materials that answer a lot of our questions, whether it's the Mr. Marks, who talked about the Nationwide Buy America, whether it is also one of the gentlemen earlier who talked about the other states that have issues. So I think I would counsel everybody to go back and read all of the materials that were submitted to us. I think there's going to be a lot of very interesting information in there for us to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that just to follow up, I would ask, I'm sure we can get from the National Council of State Legislators legislatures information about other state laws. I think that was a point that was brought up and that was disputed. And I think that we should have, information about other state procedures. Any other questions or comments? Obviously, I think President Jackson and will be at should also be at the work session. Anyone else have any other requests or comments? Okay. We have one more item. Hold on. What is the next item? Lynn, could you give us the title? I don't have
Yes.
the calendar.
Yep, the next item is LD 817. The sponsor is Senator Keim, and this is a resolve to establish the COVID-19 Review Commission.
Okay. Senator Keim.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just came through the wormhole, so am I up now?
You are up now.
Okay, I thought so by the silence, but I thought I better check just to make sure. All right. Pulling up my testimony here. All right, very good. Good afternoon, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I am Lisa Keim, and I'm proud to represent the citizens of Senate District 18, which is Northern Oxford County and 2 communities in Androscoggin. Thank you for allowing me to present LD 817 to you today, resolve to establish the COVID-19 Review Commission. Establishing the COVID-19 Review Commission would compel the Maine legislature to study our state's response to COVID-19 and the laws, rules, executive orders, and policies governing that response. The commission would be tasked to submit a report of its findings and recommendations, including suggested legislation, to the Joint Standing Committee on Health and Human Services no later than December 6, 2021. While it is true that each legislative committee has the ability to question and request information of their respective oversight areas, no one committee has a clear picture of the interrelated effects our response has had. While each policy committee sees its one piece of the puzzle, there is great need for a body of legislators to take the 30,000-foot view and look at the whole picture. For instance, serving on the Judiciary Committee, I'm aware of the enormous backlog in the courts and its effect on Maine indigent legal services and other cases that are coming up in front of the courts. However, how this same backlog impacts our children in crisis, which is usually considered by Health and Human Services, and the Department of Corrections, overseen by Criminal Justice and Public Safety, we don't know. And that's not something I've been aware of. The Education Committee will soon understand how school COVID response policies and closures have affected educational outcome for Maine's youth. But how has it affected domestic violence rates, which is usually under the purview of judiciary, and child abuse and neglect, or youth mental health crisis, which is usually issues that they hear in HHS? Maine received $1.25 billion in federal CARES Act money specifically for COVID-19 expenses. Yet, as recently released documentation reveals, the Department of Health and Human Services supported long-term care facilities with only 2% of the CARES Act funding. Despite widely known critical staffing shortages, this support included a temporary rate increase only after reported outbreaks. And this, although almost 60% of the deaths were in these long-term care facilities. So this is another example of why a COVID-19 Review Commission is critically important. How were funding decisions made? What information was considered as part of that decision-making process? What can we learn about actions taken in crisis mode that will help us better prepare for future calamities? Whenever an unexpected disruption or crisis occurs, good governance demands a post-mortem, We should document Maine's pandemic responses and seek truth in analyzing the outcomes of these responses so that we can learn from our experience. The bill as drafted creates a scope for review, including contracts entered into relating to executing the governor's emergency proclamation and related executive orders, review the data related to COVID-19 collected by the Department of Health and Human Services, Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention, including suicide attempts and deaths, and drug-related hospitalizations and deaths. Study the Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention response, including testing and use of contact tracers. Study the policies and rules connected to COVID-19 implemented by DHHS, DOE, and the Department of Defense, Veterans and Emergency Management, Maine Emergency Management Agency, Department of Economic and Community Development, and study other matters related to COVID-19 response. That portion of the bill is very broad, covering what is hoped to be all of the responses that we have had to COVID. Several states are undertaking work similar to what is proposed in this bill, irrespective of political party, simply because this is a practical response to gravely unusual circumstances that have caused our government to severely disrupt the fabric of our daily lives. While we hope to never live through another time such as this, prudence requires that we consider the cause and effect of our policy responses to glean wisdom for our future selves and for our people now. An emergency enactor is on this bill because 1, delay deteriorates memory, and 2, legislative insight is critical. We don't know exactly when we will be on the other side of this pandemic. And when I was first working with other legislators on this, I had thought that by the time it was heard, we would be on the other side of the pandemic. And I believe legislative perspective is vital. In Minnesota, the Legislative COVID-19 Response Commission reviews expenditures. In Virginia, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission is studying the impact of COVID-19 on public school students and employees. New Jersey has a select commission that focuses on borrowing. In March 2020, Maryland convened a joint COVID-19 response legislative work group to monitor the effects of the COVID-19 virus, support the governor and the Maryland Department of Health, and advise the General Assembly on any actions they should be taking. Montana and Rhode Island seem certain to be creating their own oversight commissions. And in addition to all these, attached to my testimony is an NCSL report outlining another 28 bills, creating some form of a review commission all across our nation. Maine's own review report, combined with the information gleaned from what these other states are doing, could be a powerful tool in consideration for future policies. I thank you all for your time in considering this bill and the value it will provide to the people we represent. This review commission is the appropriate responsibility of the legislature as a co-equal branch of government and fulfills our obligation to provide the necessary checks and balances our system of self-government enshrines. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Senator Keim. Very well said. Representative Toole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator, for your presentation today. You touched upon commissions from other states. Was this drafted based on feedback from other legislators in other states? I know you're involved with NCSL or some of those who worked on this legislation with you are, or other networks around the country. I guess my question with that would be, how closely does this dovetail with other efforts? And is there a way, are there things we could do to make it more dovetail with them?
Thank you for the question, Representative Toole. I didn't do an exhaustive comparison between what we have here in Maine and what other states have implemented. I mostly just noted that other states are doing things that are similar. and provided links for all of those if that's something that you would want further information about.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that's very helpful.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Representative Walter Weissman. Representative Weissman, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Okay.
There you go.
We're good now. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Senator, for your testimony today. I had a couple quick questions. One is in section 7 of the bill where it says that the commission is going to report out to the Joint Standing Committee on Health and Human Services, but it sounds to me like there would be many departments where there might be possible legislation that needed to be reported out to different departments. Have you taken that into consideration?
I agree with you. And part of the struggle as I consider this commission is the breadth of what we would be asking them to take on. Because, you know, as I thought about narrowing it, I pause and I hesitate because I don't think it's up to me to think about what is the most important aspect that we should be looking at or we should be choosing for oversight, because it's literally affecting every part of our lives. So I do agree. It may be that a bill out to the Health and Human Services is not adequate. Maybe they should maybe the language should be amended that it reports out a bill, and maybe it should come back to state and local and worked from there. But, you know, if I may, we just had today another issue come up in front of the judiciary, which made me realize how much we don't understand the full impact of our policy responses, because today we had several bills around sex trafficking of children. And there's been a significant decrease in reporting of these because children are remote learning. And so that's been a real increased danger to children. Probably something that we should be looking at and weighing when we consider remote learning. But I wouldn't have known because it was the district attorney, DA Sarbuck, who came and shared that with our committee today. And I'm sure he never goes in front of education.
Follow-up question, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, Senator Keim, I think this is a valuable bill, but it would seem to me like it's a little bit too early. We haven't made it all the way through the pandemic yet, and I'm sure there's going to be other issues that are going to come up here about how we potentially handle different topics. So, what is your comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question as well. I had thought of that, and it was partly why I alluded to my testimony that I thought it was important that we consider how our memory and deteriorates over time. So it may be that part of the commission's recommendation is that it keeps going, that, you know, they may come back and say, this is so much. Part of our recommendation is that we continue. Here's a partial report out. Here's what we've looked at so far. Here's what we believe is important for us to still examine and, you know, report back at a later time, another chunk. I really think this is a big ask, but I mean, it's a big task, but it's exactly what we're designed for.
So, again, going back to section 7, it says no later than December 6th of 2021. That seems to be an awful early turnaround. Do you have a comment on that?
Agreed. But part of the issue is that in order to staff these, we have to do it when legislature is not in session. And so again, I would probably go back to thinking that maybe one of the recommendations this commission makes is that it's ongoing and it picks up its work at another time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Toole?
Yes, and I would concur with Representative Reisman on that and would ask that the sponsor work with Lynn to draft an amendment that might I know there's ways of doing it to make this sort of maybe a 2-year commission that we could have in either session, could have bills reported out to the committees. I know that's more of a work session type of thing, but if between now and next week, when we deal with the work session, the sponsor could work with Lynn on something like that, I think that would be great.
I would be very happy to, and I just would need a little clarification on what you're exactly asking me to do, which would be fine. We can do after the public hearing. You can send me the information.
That would probably be best if you guys want to discuss that then.
Yeah.
Is any other questions or comments? Okay, Representative Fecto, you're a co-sponsor, I believe.
Yes, Senator.
Would you, you have the floor?
Thank you, Senator Baldacci, Representative Matlack, and my colleagues in the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government. I'm Justin Fecto, and I proudly represent House District 86, which consists of the western and northern portions of Augusta. I'm testifying in support of this resolve as the lead co-sponsor. After action reviews, or AARs, review commissions and centers of excellence all exist within our federal government, its departments and agencies, and within our branches of the military to serve one purpose: to learn about what happened, how we reacted, what was the result of those actions, how was it good, bad, or indifferent, and what we can pass on to the next generation so they can learn from us. Review commissions are good government. They are void of partisan rancor. They are inclusive, and they produce comprehensive reports that can be looked into over and over again. In our lifetimes, the most important review of an impactful event was the 9/11 Commission. Reports on these lessons learned about the events leading up to this day will serve this nation for hundreds of years. This is my vision for the COVID-19 Review Commission. Passing down the lessons learned from COVID-19 for future generations, when there will inevitably be another public health crisis, is not only a good idea, it is our duty. I would also fully support this commission in 2 phases, the one you see right before you here, and one conducted by the 131st legislature, which may be a recommendation of this review commission. This way, our COVID-19 response can be viewed with 2 sets of eyes by 2 different bodies. This will increase the effectiveness of the overall product. And so with that, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Representative Fecto? Okay, any requests for information, materials, or people at the work session? Representative Toole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's probably more of a question for Representative Reisman. In light of Representative Fecto's testimony, that's kind of where my thinking for the work session in drafting a potential amendment might go. And I was wondering if Representative Reisman felt the same way or similar to that.
Well, I think if you guys want to have a discussion, I don't think we need to, this is a public hearing, so I mean, it'd be a little premature to poll people, I think, at this point, but
I will communicate with Representative Toole
That's
after
what
we're done.
yeah, that's what I assumed. So any requests for information, materials, or people for the work session? Okay, I mean, I think it would be helpful to know, Lynn, what other states are doing in this regard. I'm not against this bill, but I'm not. I think I empathize with the Representative Reisman's timing concerns, and so I think we need some thought. But maybe if we could see what other states are doing, that might be helpful as well. Are there any other requests for information? Okay. So any other matters, Lynn, that we should be taking? Any other speakers, first of all, Cheryl, on this bill? Okay, I thought so. And Lynn, do you have any other matters you want us to address before we sign off?
I do not have anything else for the committee today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm up for another good hour, 2 hours, whatever you want to do. So
Join
we-
us in judiciary then. We'll be going until at least 7.
Okay, well, I hope you have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. And so 9 o'clock on Friday, is that correct? We are on. Okay, good to see everybody. Have a nice day. See you Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Yeah.